Just as a reminder, you can visit us at rss.com/podcast/thepandapod. That's rss.com/podcast/thepandapod to grab our RSS feed, listen directly, and share Pandapod with your family and friends. You can also reach us directly via email through pandapod.podcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Welcome everybody to Panda Pod. Today we got an exciting episode for you guys. Well, at least it's going to be exciting for us, hopefully for you. So today we're talking about aliens.
Ba, ba, ba.
Banana aliens. So we all have differing opinions on aliens and things of the alien nature, but we're going to jump right in just because we love it so much. So start off with a question here. So let's take the assumption that aliens are real, right? Um, how long do you think they've been around?
Okay, so wait a minute. The assumption is that aliens are real, and they come to Earth.
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
how long have they how long do you think they've been moseying around Earth?
I think probably as long as we've been on Earth. You know?
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I mean, I think that they probably have been around since we were monkeys.
Since we were monkeys. So I have like differing ideas. Like I enjoy the thought that aliens were here. So there's a couple different semi-popular theories out there, right? So the first one is, so you guys are saying like forever. So
Right.
specifically since we're monkeys, right? So one theory is that they may have tampered with our DNA as monkeys, and that's
Sure.
why we're different than monkeys,
The
right?
Prometheus theory. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. I mean, I'm
So
not trying to confirm or deny that. I just feel like, statistically speaking, I might as well go with the longest amount of time that makes any sense.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, Another theory is they showed up around the time of the last ice age, which is like that younger dryas time. Um, so depending on how you feel about it, let's go to traditional route. So the traditional route says that we were hunters and gatherers at that point. Um, but around that time is the time where language and writing, specifically writing, was created around that time, right after the ice age. And so we went from hunters and gatherers to essentially philosophers and book writers overnight, essentially. And it happened in multiple different places in the world.
Well, obviously, they just had to write down how cool it was that they saw aliens.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I mean, there's a lot of imagery out there, right? So I mean, there's imagery in Egyptian history. Um, there's there's imagery in, I mean, you could even say in context of the Bible, there's
Sure.
stuff in
Flaming
there,
flaming chariots in the sky.
right? Um,
I mean, Native American history.
yeah,
Aztec and Mayan histories.
yeah, Greek, Roman. Um, they're just kind of all over the place. So I definitely think a long time, right? Like I think I'm with you guys, like a really long time. Whether or not it was before we were even people to to maybe just sometime just slightly after that when we may have become interesting in some way.
Like, what if we are aliens? What if it's just panspermia? We're just some germs that drifted from another planet and evolved.
It's completely possible. it's 100% possible. I mean, we could be. There's also an idea that maybe we've lost our history. Like maybe we were on Mars and Mars went to shit, so we left and we're like, okay, let's jump over to Earth, and then we got here, and it's just been a really long time and really hard because the world's gone through so much change, right? I mean, we went from one continent to seven, right? Like, so I mean, the world's changed a lot too. So I mean, yeah, we could have been already a people, but also, like you're saying, we could have just been, you know,
Bacteria.
some other aliens poop.
Right. Well, I mean, there's also the theory that the stuff that is being discussed today in the news is like extra dimensional too. And if that's the case, then
Yeah.
they've been here all time, right? I mean, they could have come to any time they wanted.
Sure.
I'm really into the interdimensional, extra-dimensional stuff. That's a lot of fun. There's some fun theories about that around the dawn of the atomic age
Right.
and it triggering like visits from extra-dimensional beings who like because like atomic energy can like I don't know disrupt other dimensions allegedly or whatever. That's the theory is that they noticed us for the first time when we set off the first atomic bomb.
Right.
Yeah, I mean they showed up over um, Japan. Um, they showed up. I mean, there's sites all over our bases, our nuclear sites, and things like that.
Well, that theory also explains why there's so many alien sightings in New Mexico.
Right. Yeah, because of all the testing that was done there.
Yeah, there's been a lot in the southern hemisphere too. Like in Mexico, Peru, um, they've had a lot. They've had a couple big ones as well. Um, even of landings and things like that. So yeah, that theory is really interesting to me. Is that they really kicked it up once we set off a bomb, right? We set off a bomb, and they're like, oh, what's going on over here?
Well, it's also it could be like the bomb was like a litmus test, like or a thing that they're waiting for us to do. You know, like okay, they've discovered atomic energy. It's time to intercede and make sure they don't destroy themselves like so many others have. That kind of thing.
Right. Well, if you go with the interdimensional theory as well, I mean, you can tie that in with the theory that one reason that this timeline seems so weird is because it's the one where we haven't set off any nukes since
Yeah,
Japan.
true.
I mean, people they've done nuclear testing, of course, but no one's actually launched one.
Right.
I've been feeling lately like this timeline's a little goofy.
Yeah, I mean,
Like I feel like I feel it in my bones that it's goofy.
there were plenty of really close calls during the like Cold
Cold
War and
War.
stuff, right? There are tons. So they could you could explain that in theory by aliens their knowing when the close calls might be, showing up, messing with something, and that puts us in the universe where, you know, the strange things happen.
Like literal guardians of the galaxy out there coming down. Like, hey, don't do that.
Right.
Yeah, are they saying don't do that, or are they just watching to see whether or not we destroy ourselves, or are they or are they like kind of doing our part, right? Like, are they going and just observing us in our natural ways to learn just to learn about us like we're doing with chimps right now, right? Like we're really learning that chimps have a social structure and that they actually talk to each other
One of
and
my one of my friends posed a very similar idea to that. He used a submarine as an example, or she did actually. The idea that like we go down into the ocean to explore all that foreign life and just kind of observe it and try to understand it and take samples of it. But like we can't live there, but we can go and we can visit and we can see what's going on. And then we bring it back to wherever we are and study it. And the idea is that aliens are kind of doing that same thing. Maybe they can't live on Earth or don't want to live on Earth, but they come here just to observe and whatever. Take samples. Take me, please.
So that being said, why, with the same assumption, right, that they're here, we think they've been around for a really long time. That moves into more of like the why do you think they're here realm. Like, so is that why you think they're here? What's your
Mm,
opinion? What's your guys' opinion?
I don't really know why they're here. I don't think there's any way to know why they're here. I have a fun theory on this, which is that aliens are just like us, just slightly ahead in technology. And that this is even more fun when you consider it's interdimensional travel. But it's just hobbyists out there with drones that are sending them over to us.
Hmm.
Like they're a civilization that has just cracked the code on interdimensional travel or faster than light travel, whatever it may be. For some reason it's not that difficult, and they're just a bunch of hobbyists crashing shit on our planet because they don't know how to control their drones.
Right. That actually kind of makes sense. And then, you would imply that most of them would be unmanned, probably, and maybe they haven't
Right.
figured out how to send manned craft yet.
Yeah. But yeah, I have no idea where they're here. I would love to find out. It'd be fun to interview one on this podcast. Aliens, if you're out there listening.
For sure, 100%. What do you think, Rab?
Yeah, I really don't have any clue. I would say another. Oh, I had a fun theory for a second there, but I lost it. Sorry about that.
That's okay. It'll come back. Maybe the aliens stole it.
Yeah, exactly.
You were
They were
too
here.
close.
They were here to prevent me from leaking that theory, and then they left for forever. Sorry, guys. No more aliens.
Damn, you
Jeez.
ruined it.
Why? So why aren't more people talking about aliens? Like, so if we went back to like just when we were kids, right? Like early 90s. Like, if some of this news broke then, it would be the only thing anybody was talking about.
Well, I
But
mean, we
right
weren't
now it's
in the
kind of
middle
like
of
a
a depression, or whatever we're in right now. You know, things weren't as just shit in the world in the 90s. They
Right.
were, but they weren't as pressing to the average everyday person, I guess.
Yeah, I mean now news is there and then gone basically.
Yeah. And there's just so much skepticism around it now. Like, obviously, like, for good reason, there's skepticism. But I mean, we should probably point out at some point in this podcast that last week there was a House Oversight Committee meeting talking about or interviewing three witnesses from the military who claim to have proof out there of UFOs and aliens, and that we have UFOs and that we have alien biologics. That's why we're talking about it now, is because it's prescient in the moment.
Right. Yeah, so uh, I'm curious about that committee. What did they like? And under what circumstances did they choose those three particular witnesses?
Well, one of the witnesses is a Navy pilot, or a retired Navy pilot who,
Commander
um,
Fravor.
well, I guess two of them are pilots. I'm trying to remember the other guy's name. Graves, I think. Commander
Yeah,
Graves
Graves, Fravor, and
and Grosh.
yeah, Grosh.
But Braves is trying to get a process set in place for the reporting of UAPs, because there's no good process out there right now. Like, a lot of the reports just go unchecked, unfollowed up on, or simply not even made because people are ashamed to make them or afraid to make them, whatever it may be. So his goal in that committee is to get a framework in place for official reporting on UAPs. And then there's Grosh, who it was on the UAP committee for NASA, and his job was fact finding and interviewing people to find more information on what's going on with these things. And he says he has like 30 to 40 witnesses that he's talked to have given credible accounts of, you know, both government and private companies who have UAPs in their possession and are attempting to reverse engineer them, as well as alien biologics, like actual, they use the term pilots of the crafts.
Will it be
Um,
too distracting if I stop you here for a second to ask a
no,
different question?
go right ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so what kind of companies are we talking about? Is it like Church's Chicken has a UAP?
No, this would be like Boeing and Roche,
Okay.
companies like that.
Talk
Wait, wait,
about
Um,
wait. Okay, so
100%
Roche is a
has one.
medical company, so why would they care?
no, maybe I'm thinking Rolls Royce. Whoever
Oh,
makes the
gotcha.
jet engines, that's Rolls Royce, isn't it? Um,
Maybe, but yeah, gotcha.
but no, it's companies, or yeah, companies like that that are ostensibly the government was like, hey, hold on to these for us, research them, that kind of thing.
I see. So
And
it's like a contract.
right, and the other thing about this is with Grosh is the idea that they are using tax dollars to do this via a process through NASA. I can't remember the name of it, actually. I've got it written down somewhere. But a process in, or a not process.
A program?
Yeah, a program. Thank you.
Hmm.
Uh, at NASA, it's got a name, IRAD, IRAD, um, which is a way for government contractors to submit for reimbursement to the government and then get reimbursed for it. And they're doing is they're submitting it under other things, or submitting over, they're overcharging for other things to make up for the money that they're doing for the secret projects.
I see.
And this, again, this is a guy who is former military. His job was to go and find this information, and once it was found, he was like, we got to tell people what's going on here. Tax dollars are going, like a lot of tax dollars are going to this.
Right.
um, and then
Yeah,
there's Fravor, who was the other pilot, who was one of the pilots who was part of the Tic Tac incident over the Pacific, which is the like white Tic Tac shaped UFO that you've probably seen that grainy image of, the FLIR black and white image.
Yeah, yeah. I watched some of the hearing, and that came up a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And that was 2007, I think, when that happened. So um, that's why they picked those three specific people.
I see. And so did the people in Congress choose those people, or like did they reach out to them? Like how did it really get started?
Well, Grosh did a interview with an Australian news company, like I can't remember, News Center or News Central or something like that, um, where it wasn't really whistleblowing because he didn't give any of the actual like secret information, but he did very much say this shit's going on. People need to be made aware of it. And from that, it kind of snowballed into our government, or our Congress in particular, going, what the hell? We haven't been told about this. We're supposed to have access to all this information. Why aren't we getting it? And when they tried to reach out and get that information, they were denied it, which you're not supposed to be able to do. Like, that's what
Right.
Congress is for, is getting there and getting that information. So that's why they chose to hold the meeting, and that's why they chose the specific people to come and talk, because they're the most credible people out there at the moment that are willing to talk about it.
I see. Okay. Well, while we're talking about the government hearing, what is a skiff that they were talking about? Is it just a private meeting? Why do they call it
Yeah.
that?
I think it's like secret classified intel something.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
yeah, and the thing about it is, and why it's so strange, right? Is there's a couple of things. So, firstly, there was a hearing that happened. What was it? 6, 7 months ago. Um, and what wound up happening from that meeting, they kept asking more and more questions out of the Defense Department, and the Defense Department just kept telling them, "We can't tell you because it's classified information. We can't tell you because it's classified information." And that was the answer to almost every single question that was asked of them. Um, And so, but at the end of that meeting, they took a few of the members of that specific committee and took them back into a back room and then showed them video footage. Um, and then and then after that, this hearing came up, and before it even happened, like Jeff was saying earlier, they went to go and verify some of that information because there's a couple members, especially in the security committee, that actually have top secret clearance, and there's not supposed to be anything above top secret clearance. But when they went to go take a look at some of the information or some of the evidence that's been thrown out there, they were turned away.
Yeah, we denied access to it.
And you're not supposed to be able to turn people away who have top secret clearance from being able to see top secret clearance data.
Sure.
So so that's why they were kind of in a mood about it. And why the biggest thing I would say is probably that Grosh said that multiple times, like because you brought up the skiff. In a closed environment, he would be able to talk about things more freely because they do have access.
Right. Sure. So he could say he knows that he could say whatever he wants, like legally speaking, because they're supposed to have access to everything. But many people are trying to deny them.
Right. I want to know what Matt Gaetz knows. Senator from Florida, Matt Gaetz.
Sure, sure.
He had a lot to say at that meeting. He has apparently seen some very compelling like sonar data and other data that has him convinced that this is happening, you know. And like the craziest thing to me about the whole meeting was as they were talking about, UAPs, UFOs, entities, biologics, no one in that room looks surprised. It's like they know it. They already know it. They're just like,
Right.
okay, we need the proof now, but we're already aware this is going on. And that is the most shocking thing to me.
Yeah, I
Sure.
think that last meeting that they had that I was talking about really kind of opened up the Pandora's box. And then now they're trying to just like you said, just try to piece everything together. Um, I'm one of those people that I want it to be true because it's fun to think about. Um, but I really need that hard data, so I hope that they get it. Like I really hope that they get it. I mean, personally speaking, I'm not that big a fan of Gates, but if
Sure.
he blows the box off of it, I'll give him the credit for it. Like if there's like he was saying, there's not a lot of them that were really surprised about the answers that they were getting, and that means that they've all seen something.
You want to hear something really frustrating?
What's that?
Sure.
Trump knows the truth.
Oh, he
He,
said they were
he
real on TV.
yeah, he said several times that he knows the truth about aliens. He's been briefed on it, and he will tell us if he's elected again. Of course, he will tell us if he's elected again. It's just the millionth thing he'll do when he's elected again that he'll never probably do.
You know,
But
Right.
like, there have been so many like interviews that I've watched of him talking about it that it's just really clear that he does know what's going on.
Well, Hillary Clinton also campaigned on that in 2016.
Well, and there's been interviews with Obama too. Obama has a movie coming out later this year that he's not making, but he helped produce. Both the Obama, like him and Michelle both did, about an alien, like a documentary about an alien case, I think from the 70s,
Hmm.
um, like where allegedly these people like went into a trance and were talking. I might be messing this up completely, but basically like the interviews I've seen with him as well, like the first interview I saw was like from 2015. He's just joking with like Jimmy Kimmel about it or something. And then like as he does more and more interviews, you can see he's getting more and more serious about it. And like his post presidency interviews on it have just been like really clear that he thinks we need to know what's going on.
Yeah, with Trump saying that he'll do that if he gets elected is I mean, he's so scared. I mean, people are coming after him now. if he released like the bombshell while not having that like protection that you get from being the president, I think he's scared of getting.
I don't think he's scared. Here's what I really think is going on. And I think that this information has been not common knowledge, but well known knowledge within the government for a long time. It's a mostly Republican led committee for the House committee that was meeting on this.
Well,
Um,
yeah, it's the security meeting.
and
That's what
I think him saying that he'll release the information, I think that the conspiratorial part of all this is the Republicans drumming up interest in aliens, and they're going to use that as like a talking point for why we should elect Trump.
Hmm.
But I don't think that makes it any less true. I think they're just using it as a tool for that end.
You don't think it makes the aliens any less true?
Right. I think the alien parts is true. They're just like, okay, well, this is true. People are starting to talk about it. It's going to get out anyway. Let's get out ahead of it, and we can use it as a reason to, elect Trump again. You know.
So in your mind, no matter who gets elected, uh, the truth, like some big truth bomb, will drop in the next presidential administration, no matter what. And if Trump promises to do it, that's kind of just like free points.
Right. Exactly. And I also have been watching other videos. Like you guys know, I'm a part of a lot of like weird spiritual out there, whatever. But there's a lot of talks about something happening in the next 300 or so days that's going to be so undeniable regarding aliens that if they don't get out ahead of it, they'll look like fools because everybody's just going to know.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's true or whatever. I think it's fun to think about. I think it's very interesting that the recent piece of legislation that was put forth by that committee has a 300-day or around 300-day, what is it, deadline for them to release the information that they're requesting. Um, and this stuff about the 300-day thing I've been hearing about long before that piece of legislation was even written. So um, I think there is something going on there that we're going to find out more, and that also lines up with around the time that the election is going to be happening, or at least
Sure.
campaigning for it. So if Trump comes out and says aliens are real, it's going to happen. Just you wait, and then something does happen. I mean, he's going to look like he whatever.
Right. Okay. Hmm. The aliens told us long, long ago when they're going to send the mothership. I mean, it probably takes a long time to get aliens here.
It's probably true, unless they're interdimensional.
Or they're already here and they have the ability to just blend in and look like us, right? Like there could already be a ton here. I mean, let's go the uh crazy Marvel Secret Invasion route. Like they could be like changelings, right?
Bold of you to bring up
Sure.
Just
Secret
be
Invasion
yeah,
at the very beginning.
Secret Invasion.
That's a contentious point in the Marvel world right now.
Yeah, so what I mean, it just kind of it looks like to me that this definitely will be used as a political tool. And I mean, let's get this straight. I mean, if they do a 300 days and the elections in 300 days, they're just using it as a tool. They're just using it as a tool. And they may not actually care whether or not everybody knows, or they know it's inevitable, so they're just milking it as much as they can.
The election is in more than 300 days because a year is 300 days, and we're still a couple months out from when it would be.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So again, the idea is that they're going to predict it or come out ahead of it and look like the good guys, the for the people guys, because they're letting the public know the truth, you
And
know.
they can always say there's more or whatever.
Right. And I mean, obviously there's going to be more.
Sure.
Another this is a tangent a bit, but another reason that I've seen videos people talking about why they don't like why they're so upset about finding out right now is that again we've been spending tax money on this reverse engineering of things and we're not getting anything from it because it's secret. Whereas if they would come out and release the information, more people would have the opportunity to help reverse engineer it and get to a point where we're actually profiting from whatever this technology is that's out there.
Well, there's a really old theory that we've been reverse engineering the stuff ever since,
Oh
like
yeah,
ever
yeah.
since the 80s or the 70s or something like that, and the um the processing chip is essentially alien technology.
Yeah, I was talking to our mutual friend Angela the other day, and she was telling me that she has an uncle who is in the Navy, and he claims that the she said the reason we have AI right now is because of alien technology. I think it's more likely that the reason that we have the exponential growth in technology that we've had over the last since the 1940s is maybe because of reverse engineer stuff. But
Yeah, like we
Yeah.
had we had like a really, like, we could have had something that was super advanced, but and we figured out how it works. So if you take like all of, like, most of technology, so from processors to the first Intel chip, and you space out small increments in growth over a period of time, so your companies get to milk that, first off. Secondly, you adapt the people to the increase in technology over time, instead of, like, all of a sudden going from essentially calculators to 3D gaming, right? Like, you can't just jump that hoop without there being some shock to society.
Well, also it may take some time to reverse engineer something. Um, I mean, if you imagine that a UFO landed in maybe like the 1920s or 30s with a microchip on it, people might wonder what that is, and it may take them some, years to even build a physical model like a large computer. And then once they get the theory, they're like, oh, well, obviously they can be made to be this tiny, tiny, tiny size, right? And then they start thinking about how to do that.
It's so weird to think about some of this stuff and how it could have just changed our trajectory. But if we, once again, if we go all the way back to the beginning, they genetically engineered us to begin with, then almost all of human history is just a big giant science project. It doesn't have anything to do with us or actual growth of a species. It's just, we've just been a science project this entire time, which is kind
Sure.
of scary to think about, but it's not beyond the realm of possibility.
Well, I don't have anything to respond to that with. Do you have another question?
Oh, well, I mean, we can go from there to the crash retrieval program that was mentioned. So they think that there has been a retrieval program in place that the military's had for a very, very long time,
since Roswell.
since Roswell. So if we and this would be something that would happen without public knowledge, something that's wholly contained within our military,
Or again, private contractors.
or again private contractors that don't have to report to people. And as we we found out in that committee hearing, they don't actually have to specify, and they're not required to report on anything that may be extraterrestrial in nature. They have
Right.
no actual, there's no actual, like, law or rule in place that they have to do so. It's really kind of scary, because but it's kind of also every day, because we know that this is happening with everything else in the US, right? Companies are essentially running our government, they're running, and, and they're just so ingrained in everything that we do, that they're, how much stuff are they doing and not telling us about and using our money for?
Yeah, at one point in time during the meeting, Grosh was asked, why aren't we able to get this information? Who is stopping us? And he said it's people both. in the government and outside of the government that are stopping you from finding this information. Like there, and the implication there is that the people outside the government apparently have just as much power in stopping this information from getting to Congress as the people within the government.
Right.
That's a
Well, I
scary
mean,
thought,
the
you know.
military industrial complex is the most powerful thing in our nation.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the highest funded thing. Like, Boeing, Raytheon. I mean, they're all just so powerful that there's not much we can do about it if they did want to hide something. Um, and it's super scary. I mean, there's always a need to have some top secret stuff that is hidden from people because you don't want just like you don't want everybody to go crazy, right? But I mean, they just lost $1 billion like what, a year or two ago, and nobody in Congress even batted an eye. Like they're just
Just
like
a billion? Yeah, who cares?
yeah, we misplaced $1 billion,
Hmm.
and we're like, okay, all right. I mean, so and it's things that keep happening too. Like they sent extra money to Ukraine to help out with the war. They sent like an extra, I think it was like 6.4 billion or something like that.
Damn.
And they're just like, no, it's okay. We have pots that we put our money in, and so it's fine. We'll just take that out of the pot that goes for that stuff and send them less money later. We're like, nah, ask for them. Nobody's asking them to ask for the money back. Like, what the hell's going on here?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean that seems like as good a reason as any to for there to be a cover up, I guess. But I guess my one question that I have is like, how has this not come out through another country?
Well, I mean, it's possible that maybe it has. There was another part during the meeting where they were talking about there's Russian government documentation that has been leaked that mentions UAPs and possible possession of UAPs. And it's also possible that the other countries who have gotten access to it simply don't want the world to know about it. Like it makes more sense for like China, for instance, if they have that technology, they want to be the ones to reverse engineer it before anybody else finds out about it, and it's a lot harder to get information out of China than like the U.S., for instance.
Well, you also have to we have to look at this a couple of different ways too. So we are the most technically advanced country, especially in our when it comes to our defense, right? I mean, we call it defense, but it's the mere military industrial complex, right? So they have the highest level of technology that's available. China mostly steals all of their technology from other countries.
I mean, I don't know if that's true. I don't even know that we're necessarily the most technologically whatever anymore, but we're definitely one of the superpowers. But I mean, there's a lot of superpowers out there right now.
I mean, if you want to take a look at, just our militaries alone when you compare those to other countries. Like our military is bigger than the next three countries in line with us put together,
Right.
and they're our allies. Like so, like to think that they're really spending the same amount of money and they have the level of technology that we do. Like I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it is lost to graft, though.
Yeah, sure. I mean, a lot of it's just like I said before, like cover ups and just whatever else that they're doing with the money behind our backs and all that other kinds of stuff. But I mean, as ex like CIA agents and FBI agents that have come forward have talked specifically about how China, like, so they'll come and they'll take over companies, or they will, um if you want to deal, if you want to make a deal with the Chinese government with the CCP, right? So you'll go over there and you'll try to make a deal with them, and then they will essentially take your company and then not pay you for it. and they'll just take everything. They'll take all your technology. They'll take every single piece of IP that you have,
Nice.
and that's what they're doing to technology companies. So, like, they're not as big in Russia. I mean, if we take a look at the types of things that they're using in the war against Ukraine, I mean, let's be completely honest. If we can send Ukraine money and Ukraine can essentially put them at a standstill without having to put boots on the ground, they're not doing that well. Like,
Sure.
they maybe they're a superpower only in name because they have nukes. So, I mean, I don't think that they may have the technology needed to actually see this kind of stuff is my point. Like, I don't think they may have the same information that we do.
I wouldn't be surprised if every country that has set off a nuclear test has been visited by aliens.
Sure, maybe visited, but not actually have any kind of video or any kind of like actual surveillance, like radar footage and things like that on them. Because it wasn't until like with Fravor that they upgraded the radar systems that they were actually able to see the Tic Tacs in the first place.
Right, and some of the equipment they were using didn't even have that upgraded radar stuff, so they couldn't see it.
Yeah,
So there's like conflicting info there.
yeah.
What do you think about the theory that I just came up with that nuclear explosions are like a mistake in interdimensional travel? Like we figured out how to do the mistake version first and blew up a bunch of bombs, and then
Ooh.
maybe they're close to reverse engineering actual interdimensional travel the same using the same method.
Via the splitting of an atom.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you do it, maybe if you do it the right way, it can point you somewhere.
Yeah, I mean maybe CERN's really onto something. Maybe it's atom smashing and making those tiny black holes. That's
Oh,
the trick.
they
You know.
scare me so much. I'm so afraid of CERN. I feel like CERN's the reason why I feel like there's been different realities in my timeline. Like, because they just keep smashing stuff together without knowing what's going to happen. They're just like, hey, let's do this. And nobody gets to, like, watch them and say, like, maybe that one's pushing it a little too far. Like, no. They just get to do
Man, I'm
whatever they
sure
want.
somebody's watching them. I'm not so worried about CERN because it's just a bunch of science nerds.
Well, that's what I'm most afraid of is science nerds.
Like, I don't think
Like,
there's much of a military presence at CERN.
no, it's no, but even not just military, just I mean, they're trying to create black holes, right? And like miniature black holes, and they're trying to learn how all this stuff works. But every time they do it, something weird happens, I feel. Like like every time they run a new test, it's just crazy.
Maybe they're
It's just
deleting
crazy.
some parallel universes.
Maybe, or maybe they're bringing
Yeah,
them
we didn't need that
together.
one.
Maybe they're bringing them together, and that's why
Yeah,
it's so weird.
merging. Are we talk? Are we gonna? Let's not go Mandela effect here. Let's not do
Well, I mean, yeah,
it.
that's where I'm headed. But like, because I feel like that's been happening more and more, like since they've been slamming stuff together, and I don't know. It's dangerous to me. It's dangerous because we don't know what the after effects are. That's what they're looking for.
This is probably a topic for another
Yeah, yeah. We'll
podcast.
save that. We'll save that for another one.
Okay, but when we talk about that, I do want to talk about how they're growing brains because this is so disturbing to me. But we'll talk about that
Like,
another time.
Is this at CERN that they're growing brains?
No, not at
Oh,
CERN. But
gotcha.
well, I mean, that actually doesn't concern me quite as much because we're getting to that point with our tech, which maybe it's alien tech, that we're getting close to the point of our brains just becoming mini computers anyway, right? Like eventually we're going to be able to load our consciousness onto a micro SD card and just plug it in a slot in the back of our head, right?
well, I hope so. That's the future I want. I'm tired of this
Sounds fun to
body.
me.
Upload me, alien daddy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Do it.
upload me, space daddy. But I mean, so that theory is really cool. I mean, that we did it backwards, right? That we could have stumbled across something else completely, and then that eventually leading us to like the atom bomb, right? Um, that's a really really cool theory. Like I wish we would have done that. I wish we would have solved the world before we got to the atom bomb.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking like maybe that's how the craft got here, was using a technique similar, splitting the atom and you know, but they maybe if they do it a very particular way, it can send you somewhere or something like that.
That'd be pretty dope.
Yeah, space travels is a strange thing to think about.
Well, aliens would have to have some kind of faster than light travel to get here.
Right. Something, yeah.
Or space bending or dimensional something. Sure.
Breaking the known laws of physics.
Yeah.
Which was a hot topic at that meeting.
Yeah,
Like, especially from Fravor. Like, about how these things are just breaking the laws of physics. And Graves, too. Like,
sure.
Graves, oh, this is fun. Graves talked about these, like, cubes that are flying that are surrounded by glass or some kind of, like, clear something.
Okay.
And I heard an interesting theory on that, which could be that maybe those are extra dimensional crafts, and that the cube they saw is just the part that we can see in the 3D.
Ah,
You know, I thought that was really interesting. I don't know
sure.
where to go with that, but I mean, apparently one of those cubes flew like within 50 meters or 50 feet maybe of like in between two fighter jets that were flying over. I think it was like north of Hawaii or something like that.
Hmm.
And they both got a very good look at it because it sped right by them. And yeah, and they've also said that these cubes have like visited military bases. Like,
Interesting.
so that's an interesting one to me.
Yeah, I mean, that is strange that they would visit military bases. I mean, I feel like I almost have to be sure that aliens aren't malicious. Just like otherwise, why would they have not destroyed us already?
Well, the only things that they've done when they visited the bases. So Grosh said some things that were slightly contradictory. Like he said that they've flown close to people, like people have been hurt. Um, but he
Well, I
didn't
don't know that
get.
he
But he
said that
didn't
people were
go.
hurt in that way.
Well, he said that there were some type of injuries.
Right, but I think those were like injuries in the process of like trying to reverse engineer.
Oh, maybe I heard
Yeah,
it wrong.
yeah.
But from what I've heard, what they do with the bases, so the bases that they visit most often, according to base witnesses, has been that they visit the bases that have nukes. And what they do is when they get there, they knock out all of they essentially close to EMP them.
What?
Yeah, like there will be like their radar will go offline, um some of their communications networks go offline, some of like maybe as a and some people are taking it as a warning, like hey, like you guys have these things, don't use them, or to try to prevent us from using them in the future, or but those are where those types of crafts are visiting most often, and those are happening in Russia too. There have been reports of those happening in Russia over bases as well.
So why go there, and why do anything temporary? Couldn't they do something permanent?
Who
I
knows? Maybe
yeah,
maybe
I
they
don't
can't.
know.
Maybe they
Maybe
can't.
they are. You
Yeah,
know.
or maybe they are, and we don't just don't know it. Like maybe those bombs aren't good anymore for all we
That's
know.
true. That's a good point. I guess they could be permanently disabling them, and nobody tries to use them.
Right. But it's definitely like if you want to take a look at that first and foremost, then they're definitely trying to say something by what they're doing, or maybe they're just fucking around. Um, I mean, who knows? Maybe they're just fucking around.
Yeah, maybe they're
But
just hobbyists. You know. Maybe
yeah,
they're trying to steal our technology. You know. Maybe they're not that advanced. You know.
Yeah, or maybe they have leftover spacecraft from a different civilization they came in contact to, but they don't have personal computers or cell phones. Like that could be a thing too, I guess.
Sure.
But that's where they've been seen most often is around bases that have nukes on them.
Interesting.
Um,
And we
yeah,
should probably also say this is a big part of the meeting towards the end of the meeting at the oversight committee was that ostensibly the reason that they had the meeting was for national security reasons, you
Sure.
know. And they kind of tried to play that up a lot more towards the end of the meeting, asking questions like, have these been spotted on the East Coast, indicating that they are close to the capital and it's a threat, and
Right.
so I mean that's the probably going to be how they justify the spending that's going to have to be done to do this. But I mean, who knows? I mean, they could be hostile. I feel like if they were hostile, well, again, this goes back to the idea that maybe they're not that advanced. I mean, maybe an attack on a foreign planet is a difficult task. You know, and
Sure.
and they're just gathering intel right now. It's totally possible. Because yeah, it is easy to assume that they're probably just super advanced, and they could destroy us if they wanted to. But maybe it's really not that simple,
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
I guess.
Independence Day, right?
right?
Like, I mean, not the second one. I didn't watch the second one, but I think the second one they kind of finished us off.
I don't think I even knew there
I don't
was
know.
a second
Yeah, there
Independence
was
Day.
a second one, but I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it, but that's what I
Independence
assumed.
Day.
Like, because they showed in the previews on that one that they just kind of popped up, and there was like a whole bunch of motherships, and not just like the one in, in the first movie. But obviously in movies we're the heroes, right? Like we stop them from taking over our planet or landing on our planet, and like most movies that's where we become the stopper to them, right? But they're usually much more advanced than we are at the same time. But that doesn't necessarily have to be true. I mean, just because they have the ability to travel doesn't mean that they have the same. I mean, we've been at war for thousands of years. Like we have so
Yeah.
much experience in war, but so maybe they're not that warlike, or maybe they're afraid of us, and that's why they're messing with our nukes because they're like, oh man, like maybe we want to say hi, but whew, them nukes, buddy.
It's just a big misunderstanding. They think the nukes are weapons that, like, I mean, maybe they theoretically could be launched into space and hit a planet, but we just don't have the targeting systems.
Yeah, for sure. I never thought about that. It's like from a defense point of view. Like maybe they're like, man, these guys are gonna they're gonna hit us within the next, you know, 500 years or something.
I mean,
And
ICBM could hit anything in space, I think, right? Because if you just launched it the right way.
Right? It's not going to stop. It's just going to keep going.
yeah, I mean
Yeah,
you'd have to calculate a whole bunch of stuff to get that to go.
sure.
But like I
But
mean
we do that
supercomputers
though.
but supercomputers aren't that far off. Like we're making crazy strides in supercomputers.
I mean, we
So
already launch satellites into space and fling them around planets and
Yeah,
whatever until they're going where we want them to go. We already have that ability. We just don't have the ability to do it within a decent amount of time. That we would need that light speed travel for.
right.
yeah, yeah. I mean, distance, right? To pinpoint at distance, we would have to calculate farther off. Like right now, we're just calculating for the most part, like what speeds things are going at, and we don't really go far outside. We don't go that far outside the solar system, other than what we've sent out three.
What I think really it's just Voyager, isn't it?
Yeah,
Well, we sent out. What about the old one?
but also like we've sent out. Well, I mean, there's. I'm sure there's plenty of stuff we've sent out into deep outer space, but not intentionally.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, at a pinpoint marker, right? Like, so if we're trying to hit a planet that's in, the next galaxy over,
I
like,
don't think that that's that difficult though, really. I don't think the math on that. I mean, obviously it's really difficult math, but I think that's math we can do. Like, because once you get out there and you're going, there's not a whole lot out there to interrupt you from getting to where you're going. So you just need to know where it is and the trajectory, and you can do it.
Yeah.
But again, like if we were to send something to our closest celestial neighbors, like galaxy wise or whatever, like we're talking like 40 light years,
Right.
away.
Yeah.
So it's going to take forever to get there,
Yeah.
unless we have or develop the technology to do it much faster.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you guys think it's a coincidence that so many huge technological advances have been announced this year? Like fission, that room temperature semiconductor that was just announced.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Like that was like I think announced on the same day as the UFO meeting, the the room temperature
I didn't hear about
semiconductor.
that.
Yeah, like it's a huge deal. Like
There was
it
some rumblings a couple weeks before that.
I mean, but if the alien thing hadn't happened that day, that would have been the biggest news that day. And it probably, as far as everyday living is concerned, is the biggest news in a long time. The room temperature semiconductors, because that's gonna revolutionize just how we transport or energy, how we store energy. That's gonna be really really big deal. So,
Right.
but I just think it's interesting all this stuff's happening at the same time as making these announcements about alien tech as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting how there's so many implications that come with the possibility of aliens or alien craft, right? And he also some of the crazy thing that I want to point out real quick is he kept saying that he didn't want to say Grouch kept saying that he didn't want to say whether or not they were extraterrestrial or not.
Right.
He kept saying like just non-human, right? Which
Right.
goes into some other theories that are like, okay, are they already here? There's some speculation that maybe they're in the ocean because we don't really go that deep and down into the ocean anymore,
Sure.
and it's really hard for us to do so. So maybe they're down there, or maybe they're with us here somewhere and we can't see them,
Well, and the
or
Tic Tac event in 2007 was hovering over something under the water
yeah,
and like
it did go
zigzagging.
underwater.
I don't know. I don't think it went underwater, but like it was
It did.
hovering over something that was generating like I think they call it white water when the water is being jostled from underneath or whatever.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, it did go underwater at some point. And there was another one that vanished completely underwater.
Hmm.
To escape, or well let's just say escape the fighter jets that were around at the time. So there's always that possibility that they are here already, and or maybe they're already part of our society, or what have you. And that's what he's hinting at, because and he can't just come out and say it because yeah, I mean top secret clearance, right? It's just what it is.
All right. I got a new theory. I call this Stellaris theory. So, in this one, there's a couple of alien factions. So that explains why there's different types of technology that we see. And they're making decisions that are like on the hundreds of thousands of year scale, like strategic decisions in their war against each other. And taking a planet is pretty easy to do, but they like, if one of them takes Earth, there could be a war over it. It's like one of those situations. They have to be perfectly secure in their position, and they're so good at like computing each other's moves that they know what one event might trigger another, right?
Maybe that's why they're testing out what they can do to our nuke bases. Maybe they're afraid of the nukes because we can just set them off and destroy the planet. And maybe
Right.
they don't want us to. And so they're like, hey, stop. Or if they get in a fight and we don't know that they're in a fight and we feel threatened, that we'll nuke.
Sure.
So yeah, I like that theory.
I mean, it explains why they haven't invaded us and taken over already. It explains why they why there are different types of alien sightings as well. So nice little neat bucket that you could theoretically put everything in if you were so inclined.
Yeah, different types of different ship shapes, methods of transportation. Like some seem to be a little more dimensional, some seem to be a little more bending of space time, gravity, those types of things.
Right, and I mean some might have like literally one type of alien might be able to have a base underwater on Earth, and one might not have that technology.
Yeah, that's super cool. I like thinking about that. I'll have to rack that around the noggin a little bit later. That's really fun. So that being said, personal thoughts, right? So Rab, do you think they're real?
I am, I would say, a little bit more open to the idea after this conversation. I would say that I don't think it's going to affect my life any way at all, apart from like maybe some huge way that I could never anticipate, right? So there's not a whole lot of point trying to make a decision one way or the other. I would say in general, I'm fairly skeptical, especially at the idea that like the government is not that they're hiding something. I obviously believe they do that, but that they're like able to cover up something that big for that long. I don't know exactly um, how to describe what I'm trying to say. I just feel a little bit skeptical that like the news would come right now and it's
You want proof?
yeah, I do want proof. I think that would be interesting to go through each of us and see what it would take for us to believe like what would have to be revealed from this point to be 100% sure, or are you already 100% sure?
Well, what is that for you? What would it take for you to be like, okay, all right, there's no doubt in my mind, they're
I
definitely
think I
real.
would probably have to see a living alien on TV. Like if an alien spoke to the president or any other public outreach, right? I think that or I mean you think surely they'd be able to like put one on video even if it can't like come out of its ship or something like that, right?
Sure, sure.
What about you, Jeff?
I've always thought aliens are real, so that this isn't a shock to me. And I feel like that with the just seemingly constant, there's a constant stream of information coming out. More and more people are willing to talk, and I think the government knows if they don't get out ahead of it, they'll look like either assholes or fools, one of the two. That's my theory on why we're finding out right now. I definitely think they're real. Next month, August 17th through 20th, I'll be at the Hot Alien Summer Camp where I'll be doing CE5 meditation, which is meditation specifically meant to like reach out to aliens. We'll be doing that at night. They
Cool.
did it last year, and they said they saw some stuff they just could not explain in the sky. There's a dark
Nice.
dark zone next to where we're staying, and yeah, we'll be doing that every night. I'm really excited to see what happens. I would love to see proof. I would love for it all to come out. I would love for the people who know me who think I'm crazy for thinking the things I think to know that I'm not crazy because I personally know I'm not crazy. And yeah, I think it'll be really cool once the world is aware that we're part of a galactic community instead of just a world community. I think that's going to be a big thing. And then shortly thereafter, the UN will take over, the Illuminati will win, um, the one world government will take over. We'll all be using credits and Cyberpunk 2027 shortly thereafter. So I'm ready for all of it.
I I'm a mixed bag when it comes to it. I believe the things that I have seen that have been captured on video. The Tic Tac encounter is when you take into account the rate of speed that they're going at and the fact that this thing just zippity does right away is kind of hard to ignore, no matter what it is. I don't think that it's because the other option is that these ships are technology that somebody has here on Earth that's human.
Which is kind of more wild to think about than it being
Sure.
aliens.
Right, and I don't think it's true because because to my earlier point, I think that we're the only country that'd be able to pull it off. And like, I'm not saying that in as far as like I don't think we're smarter. I don't think anything like that. It's just that if we have the retrieval program, we have the capability of back engineering. If put together with the fact that we're just so far ahead on technology in general, that it would have to be ours. And if it was ours, why wouldn't they come out and say that it's ours? Because every other country would automatically assume that it's either aliens or it's ours.
Sure.
And if they just come out and say it's ours, then every other country could stop their posturing, right? Like, we would have the the ability to say stop to whatever is going on that we don't like. And we have a history of doing that anyway. So, but that's why don't think it's ours. I definitely think it's something else, but I can't be 100% sure. And so I would really need some hard proof. And I don't think video is going to do it for me, because at the rate we are right now with the level of technology we have, we could fake it. We could.
Sure. Well, that's why when I say see an alien on TV, I mostly mean like CNN is reporting on it or something like that. I mean, uh, that's kind of the level of
Unless
verification I'm looking for.
unless an alien shows up on the Joe Rogan podcast, I'm not believing it. Like if it comes off of CNN or Fox or NBC, I'm not gonna believe it, because I can't trust anything that they say.
I think if an alien only shows up on Joe Rogan, I won't believe it.
That's also true. It would have to show up in multiple places.
Sure. Yeah, I mean the alien
But
would have to do a full press tour.
yeah, right.
Maybe
But
that's why they're avoiding it. They're just really anxious.
they're
They're
just
like they're just
social
so
anxiety.
shy. Yeah, they're just all very camera shy. Like, you go do it. No, you go do it. And then like a couple guys are like, all right, we're gonna do it, and they crashed and got captured by the government. They're like, shit, now we can't do it.
Yeah, yeah. And the Tic Tac was moving faster than our missiles.
It was moving faster than physics can explain.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
so I don't think there's any of this, like the crashes have anything to do with us. I don't think like we shot down an alien craft. Like, I don't think
no,
that's
no, I don't think so
possible. I
either.
think I think maybe they didn't account for something in the atmosphere. Maybe they got here and their engines overheated. Like,
Or
maybe
maybe,
something.
we crash probes into shit all the time.
Oh, for 100%. We
Maybe
crash
they're
stuff
just
all the time.
crashing a probe into the middle of Roswell, New Mexico, just trying to get a drone on the ground and whatever.
I mean, we're just trying to get some billionaires down to see the Titanic, and we can't pull that off. So,
All right. New theory. I got a new theory.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so this is dumbass theory, which is that only the aliens that are awful, like, are the ones that volunteer to come here because everybody else is way too smart to do that.
Right, it's only the Ferengis that are coming.
they're just trying to come here to
They're just
sell us
going to
some stuff.
acquire. Yeah.
Yeah, like, well, I guess I was more talking about it in terms of individuals, not
Oh,
species, right?
okay, okay.
So, like they're sending their worst literally because everybody else is too busy, like, making poetry or having sex or whatever.
I love that.
So it's just
Oh,
the guy that's
speaking
just like,
of having sex, would you fuck an alien? Eh? You're single, you got no wife, you got no kids. Fucking alien? Huh?
I
how
have to
about
see the
how,
alien first.
how about you?
Yeah, I'd probably fuck the alien.
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably yes, but I'm sure there's some forms an alien that could take that would turn me off. It's like theoretically possible.
It yeah, it definitely depends on. So it's one of those things where how close does the alien get to our level of what we consider to be beautiful aesthetically, right? Like if it's got sharp teeth like a Ferengi, no, I'm not touching that. Like, I'm not going anywhere near that. Some sharp teeth and maybe scales or something like that. Like, you can leave me alone.
I've seen some very particular images on the internet of scaly aliens that I'd probably still be okay with. You know what I mean?
But it could just be like a little pile of ooze too. Like it doesn't have to
True.
have a human form.
Could just
And
be a floating, glowing light of energy. You know.
yeah, I mean, but I would fuck a floating glowing light of energy. It doesn't sound very
Oh yeah,
complicated.
for sure, for sure. That's the only way you get your light body is to make love to another light body.
You have to
That's how it
merge
works.
with a light body.
Right. And I mean, the ooze is definitely like theoretically fuckable, right? I mean, I did worse as a 13-year-old, but
Sure.
the but like there's some I'm sure there's some forms it could take that would make it impossible for me.
how many stories are there of the abductions, right? But there's more interested, but those kind of stories are more interested in probing us than letting us probe it. So maybe all those species are male.
I'm down for probing though, for science. You
For
know.
science, you're down for probing.
Yeah.
I don't think you have much say in the matter at that point.
What if they
Yeah.
don't have lube?
Once again, I don't think you have much say in the matter.
I mean, it's true, but that's just a you don't want to damage the subject when you're doing the.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I would assume if they're probing you and not dissecting you, they're probably pretty ethical.
But maybe it's the worst. Like Rap said, maybe it's just the worst of them,
Just the
and they
worst of
don't care. They don't care whether or not they
Yeah, I
destroy
mean
their.
see, my theory is to explain why there's crashes, right?
right.
But it
Because
explains
the
other things
suckiest
too.
one, yeah,
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it would just have to, like I said, kind of depend on some factors there for sure. So what about? So we talked about them like maybe coming down and like talking to the president or whatever the case may be.
sure.
Assuming that they're already here, right? So based on Fravors or not Fravors, but Grouch's like hint that they may already be here. What celebrities do you think is probably an alien?
Well, I think Grosh himself is absolutely an alien. Have you seen that dude?
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit. His mannerisms are a little weird, and I don't want to sound insensitive, but the way that Fravor was like smiling, that smile that he had on his face the entire time that did not change, and then Zuckerberg's obviously an alien.
Yeah,
Yeah.
clearly.
Well, I think it's also possible that Zuckerberg's just a reptilian. Yeah, a lot of people just rule that out, but
I don't think that whole reptilian thing's. I don't think that flies.
What if
Like
Zuckerberg's a reptilian? He's the only one.
that could be tricky.
Like, there's not a secret reptilian race. Yeah, he's just the only one of them. He's the
And
only
he's the
person who's ever born
worst.
like that.
And he's the worst one.
Yeah, worst and best.
yeah.
No, he's the worst of their race, right? Maybe he's one of the ones that came down and crash landed.
Oh yeah, maybe it's a shit assignment to get sent to Earth to take it over.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
they're
what
like,
if we're like the Australia of the universe?
ah, yeah.
They're just sending all their like criminals and bullshit people they don't want to deal with here.
Well, I mean, that would explain why Musk is here,
That's true.
just trolling
Like on
the
another
world.
planet, he was like an evil genius. Like,
Right.
just send him over there.
So I would think if they were aliens, and they were posing as people and able to communicate like using the internet, I feel like there'd be more stuff on 4chan. I know there is some, but I feel like there'd be a lot more because you have to imagine they wouldn't be able to resist trolling us.
I feel the reason that 4chan's there kind of proves the point.
It's just like disinformation campaign created by aliens.
Right,
Yeah,
true.
that's just what 4chan is, and that's how it gets out, and now they're on True Social.
I mean, I guess if you take it for whatever reason, you take it as a given that aliens are here and they're like infiltrated our government, you could literally explain anything with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
True.
mean, maybe that's where we're getting confused. Maybe it's not that like reptilian race. Maybe it's just other aliens that are, you know, sh- like shape changed or are in some special room in the back of the White House or something like that, and they're just puppeteering everything. Maybe that's what the Illuminati is. It's just a bunch of aliens.
Are you guys familiar with the idea of star seeds?
No.
Okay. Well, I'll save that for a talk. I'm sure we'll have like a talk about like spirituality and metaphysics at some point. I'll save it for that. But just the idea that a lot of people here on Earth are aliens, they don't know it. But yeah, we'll get into that another time. Good talk.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, this is a good one. So we will definitely be talking more about aliens in the future.
Yeah, there'll
Yeah,
be an alien
certainly.
part 2 at some point here.
Yeah, we'll have a part two. Maybe when some more info comes out, or maybe if we learn something that's really interesting.
Mark your
Um,
calendars. 300 days. We'll have another talk about.
yeah,
300
so
days from today. Why not?
yeah, I'll mark our calendar and we'll release another episode in 300 days, and we'll see, or 301 days, and we'll kind of see what comes of that. But once again, thank you guys so much for joining us as we have these types of discussions, and we hope you guys all had fun. And uh, thank you guys, and we'll catch you all later.
Ah.
Bye.
Bye.